I am in Turkey, and northwest, and it's 35 degrees Celsius, and it's hot and humid, 100% humidity.
Wow, that's
real summer.
We had, for the first time in the south of Brazil, we went to the park and we had frost on the grass. I mean, that doesn't happen much, so everyone was like taking photos. I've never seen so many people in the park taking photos. I'm like, yeah, in Europe, the frost is just there during winter time.
Me being from Sweden, of course, we always have long winters. Nice to know that it's exotic in Brazil.
We've got everything. We've got everything. Great, great seeing Anais as well back. Maria Teresa. Gina, Maria, if you guys want to girls, it's officially only ladies. We'll wait just a few minutes. We did have quite a few confirmations, but I also know it's very busy times. So we might kick off with less people, and then as people join, re-intro, like they would say in Clubhouse, reset the room. Okay, I think Gina had problems with her connection. Yeah, Pablo was there half an hour before even. Very timely.
While we're waiting, I can just jump in. I would need some volunteers. We're going to do a UN dialogue in end of August. I will send Maya. I'm sorry I haven't got back to you yet. It's been a little bit chaotic, but I will send the information, and I would need some volunteers, note takers, etc. I don't know where I can share that. At We Changers or yeah.
Yeah, we have in We Changes now very soon. It's already starting a student network. So it's going to be like a student channel. So there are students who are writing their master thesis, or I don't know, like white papers, or are just interested in social gastronomy. So that is going to be like an amazing platform for our members to kind of like get that, like volunteerings, note takers. So yeah, super happy to support you in that, Jenny. Also to show you the channel and share it there.
Perfect, perfect. Exactly what we need. Cool. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, let's kick off to be very respectful of everyone's time, and the main room and outcomes are going to be anyway recorded. So I'm super happy because our series in partnership with Griffin Foods of the UN Food System Summit Dialogues are coming to a closing, and we all know that change starts with dialogue, and I really feel that these last months have been this ground for the change, and that now with the sixth dialogue we actually have opportunity to look at those levers. So I'm excited to actually hand over to Janet, who has been an integral part in putting together the UN Food System Summit Dialogues, and has also weaved together some reflections to kick us off today. And just a great thank you for everyone that's here to work with the team to make those connecting dots, because we already, and you will see a lot of similarities. And great thanks to Griffin Foods for the support to make this happen, this important dialogue series, and the entire team that's been putting their thoughts and hearts into the conceptualization and holding the space for these dialogues. So with no further ado, I think I don't need to repeat the housekeeping rules and the setting for it, because every single one of you has been in one or another dialogue already. And I'm really happy to see you back in the room. Janet, with no further ado, handing over to you.
Thanks, Nikki. Okay, so as we all know, this September, the UN is convening the first Food System Summit. But aside from the summit, we want to look back at our 5 dialogues that we've just had and really appreciate what has come out of that from our community. So the past few months, we've co-hosted 5 dialogues with our community to take local action on a global scale. And the series of dialogues brought together a total of 413 participants, with ranging from regions, cultures, sectors, and ages around conversations from regenerative farming to the future of restaurants. From each of these themes, we then further dismantle them into breakout rooms to dive deeper into their intricacies. And even with that, we haven't even skimmed the surface of what underlies the challenges surrounding the food system. And we know it's super, super complex. But if we keep reaching toward the right direction and discussing the right issues, then we'll start like progressing together as a community. So I can't say that these dialogues are just the start, because obviously from the 400 participants that we had in our dialogues and all of the thousands of UN dialogues happening around the world, it's clear that everyone is moving. So it's silly to say that these dialogues are monumental to begin systems change, but it's rather a reinforcement of the community that we're all working towards together. And with that, I think something that was really beautiful that came from our dialogues is the different communities that came together. So today, specifically, as we have different people from all the different dialogues, it's, at least like looking as a member of SGM, it's really beautiful that we have expanded outside of our network, built new ones, saw new connections, and kind of putting everything together. So as we continue to connect and collaborate, the vision and solutions are clear. And with that, it's easier for us to pick up the pace. And I want to acknowledge and give gratitude to everyone here and everyone who has participated in the past dialogues, and hearing so many of you working towards that change and the perspectives that you might not have heard before, or maybe not have had the opportunity to actually sit and listen to, because we all get so deep and into what we're working on that sometimes we miss the opportunities to connect with others that are also working towards systems change, but working in a different sector and a different discipline of it. So it's been really great to have that opportunity in these dialogues to really like listen and share. I will admit that I'm guilty to be, as a consumer, as one of those people that had a very narrow vision of what the challenges were in different sectors. And I think for me and for everyone, when we talk about education, it's very much the education of what we are trying to push out, but also learning from the different players that all contribute to the same causes. So it's been really great to be part of this and start again building that community. So before we jump into the breakout rooms, what we wanted to do with this final dialogue is kind of bring everything together and give like a little summary of all of our dialogues that we've had over the past few months, just to give some context into the next breakout rooms that we're going to get into and have some deeper dialogues. And as you listen to the recaps, I invite you to think about how each connects with the dialogue you participated in and how it relates to your own realities in your sector, within your region, city, or even your personal day-to-day. So with that, I'm going to pass it to our team, who will start giving recaps of each of their dialogues. And Joy will be our first one with action track 1.
Thank you, Janet. Well, I think that for us on Dialogue 1, we were just starting this whole series and learning how it happened. So that first one was the only dialogue with a regional focus. So the first dialogue was migration and nutrition, with a focus on Colombia and Venezuela and the pendular migration that happens in there. We heard from the beneficiaries of the organizations that are working in that sector. In that region, we had also the participation of different sectors in there. So food banks from Colombia, World Food Program as well, with us developing this. And I just wanted to bring a little bit of the outcomes from this dialogue. So to conclude the dialogue, we proposed the following solutions. So an education program that helped to demystify migration. So how can we make those people understand that just moving from Venezuela to Colombia won't help with their problem? They will still face issues when they get there. The second point was the implementation of co-responsibility models that can dignify the community through opportunities. So how can those beneficiaries be a part of the solution, really be in the forefront of those solutions and everything that we are doing now? Also, an execution of an exhaustive analysis of the food systems. So we generated a lot of content and numbers out of both countries, and we want to keep this going and expand the analysis of what we have and how interdependent we are from each other. Also, another proposal was to strengthen the logistical capacities for the prevention of food waste. So helping that to prevent the problem with migration, and also the creation of donation networks that are necessary for the implementation of food banks. So tying everything together, we see a lot of education coming together and understanding that we are dependent of each other. So how can we bring all of that together with the other dialogues as well? That was it for us. Thank you, Janet.
Great. Now we'll move over to action track 2 with Paula.
Sorry, I first had to unmute myself. Yeah, so super happy that we're all here. I think some of you were in our in the dialogue around food waste, and I just wanted to, and especially because I don't know, like Jennifer is also convening dialogue. So what we have been doing almost in all of them is that we have been always bringing together like those main outcomes which Joy just presented, and in our dialogue, what we wanted to explore further was like, how can we start working around or foster more collaboration when we think about food waste? Like, how can we make it happen that the ecosystem or different stakeholders think about on how to upcycle food waste and how to create products around it. But in that moment, when we started to like talk with all those different facilitators, they were like, yeah, I mean, it's great to talk about that, but there are so many other components which are necessary to actually make that happen. Because like when we already talk about food waste products, you have had a lot of things happening before actually making that happen. So we had amazing facilitators, and one of them really supported us in convening the participants around farming and really think about, if we want to talk about food waste or creating products out of food waste, how important farmers are. So the fact of like really empowering them, making farming sexy again, connecting them with the end consumer, really creating all different kind of stakeholders with the farmer was something what the participants in this breakout room underlined. So it's hard to talk about food waste if we don't have like the farmer in mind. Then we had also multi-sectoral, like everything what has to do around collaboration. And it's actually something we're gonna like jump into deeper into is education. So it was a lot about like, okay, we only can talk or make food like those products sexy if we educate young minds about the importance of preservation of ingredients and really acknowledging the entire product. And also, there was something very important in multi-sectoral collaboration when we thought about how can we educate also producers. So very often when we talk about like production of those, or when those products are produced, they're very like high-end products in a way. So how can we bring those products also to people who maybe don't have the means, and how can we, like bring the producer closer to that consumer, to those consumers which very often are not taken in mind. And a lot of people were talking about like we need a global campaign with multiple sectors around food waste. So there was some ideation around that as well. Public policy was very interesting as well, because again, education, everyone was saying we want to generate change, we have to educate on resources and systems and about the real value of food. Again, about this, one thing which kind of was very important is this transparency part, that if systems are not transparent, it's very hard to kind of like create change if trust is not there. So trust in food system is very, very important. We ideated especially around that, on how that can, how we can make that happen. And then we had consumers. That was something where we actually said it's key to bring the producer's perspective and the consumer perspective together. So we talked about food literacy as a tool for mindset shifts in every part of the food chain. How can we give visibility about the solutions that are already existing? There were like some solutions mentioned as, for example, Too Good To Go, which was an application which is used to approach the food waste problems. So how can we already use what is already existing and bring it to the consumer? And last one was community. So it was very much like connected. We had a lot of like refectorio leaders in that session who have been involved in creating or are creating right now refectorios. And there was one very important question: if we talk about those products, how can we, or food waste in general, how can we nurture or nourish equity across the food system? So how can we build models that support economic equity and benefit all stakeholders in order to see this real system change? And again, education and always having that global perspective in mind. So what we always say, like, think global, act local. So these were like those 5 breakout sessions where we have much more insights on, which we afterwards can also or will be also sharing with the team. Thank you.
Awesome. Now on to action track 3 with Maya.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to see your faces again and to like be together today to synthesize what we've been working on for the past month and a half. Our dialogue was on action track 3, which is engaging farmers in nature positive production. So this track calls on us to optimize environmental research or resource use in food production, processing, distribution, etc. But it also asks us to deepen our understanding and of the constraints and opportunities facing smallholder farmers and small-scale enterprises along the value chain. Before we get into the recap of looking back to move forward, I'd like to just read a quote from the book, Braiding Sweetgrass. I don't know if you know it, but it's a wonderful book written by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who's a decorated professor of botany and also a citizen of the Potawatomi Nation. This quote is at this part in the book, she's sapping maple trees during the New York winter. And she says, "One half of the truth is that the earth endows us with great gifts. The other half of the truth is that the gift is not enough. The responsibility does not lie with the maple tree alone. The other half belongs to us. We participate in its transformation. It is our work and our gratitude that distills the sweetness." So part of our looking back to move forward dialogue was about how much of moving forward in a regenerative way when it comes to farming should be also honoring those ancestral practices and the indigenous communities that safeguard that knowledge. Indigenous groups around the world have been practicing agroecology for eons and safeguard 80% of the world's biodiversity, while they only make up 5% of the population. So in this dialogue, we kind of beg the question, why are we not doing more to honor that? Why do we not see more Indigenous and small-scale farmers shaping this year's Monumental Food System Summit? As you may know, there are currently hundreds of civil society groups, Indigenous and smallholder farmers, that are boycotting the UN Food System Summit on the grounds that they say that it's prioritizing corporate interests and lacks a grounding in human rights. So this dialogue in particular welcomed that divergence by hosting a breakout session entirely around that topic. And what we came up with in this first breakout room was that we have to enforce the system of accountability to ensure that people are given the right to their land, allowing for ancestral and nature positive production to flourish. In light of the boycott, we need to make sure that the message of these smallholder farmers and Indigenous groups are heard. And everyone must see their role in food systems transformation, not only multinational corporations and neoliberal civil society organizations. It's crucial that everyone, no matter their role or economic clout, can see their role in food systems change, because urban communities and consumers hold the power in demanding food systems change within their actions. So there must be reciprocity between producers and consumers, and that connection between the rural and urban is crucial. To move forward, we should build networks of relationships. We should see good food as a commons and protect land. We also should be optimistic and co-create solutions together. This is our kind of response to how do we see this boycott? We have to unite in the fight. There are so many communities working towards a change. Even if we talk about the future, let's make sure that we bring everybody to the table. So our second topic of discussion was something interesting, which is engaging youth in farming, embracing technology, and preserving cultures. The farming population is aging rapidly, and how do we make farming sexy again and cool and fun? We acknowledge that there are barriers to a lot of youth getting involved in farming because they see it something as old or holding them back, or maybe trapping them in a cycle of poverty. Ecological literacy is also a huge mindset problem for this generation, which is why we propose that concepts like rural agriculture schools to train future farmers are crucial. We also need to kind of close that gap, again, coming back to the gap between producers and consumers, have more chefs cooking in farmers markets to create awareness of how we eat, where it comes from, and to celebrate the colors and biodiversity. We also should bring value to the farm. So until the farmer only provides ingredients, we will never get out of this broken system. Youth can engage in smart commercial relations and partnerships with farmers to disrupt the system. And then regional education. We do see a trend where we're moving back to valuing what is local, but let's keep going with that trend. And then also we can embrace technology to spark curiosity among the youth and make growing food cool again. So our third breakout topic was decolonizing our plates. And what does that mean? So decolonizing our plates means implementing alternative systems that challenge the capitalist model by consulting local communities and creating resiliency to truly decolonize our plates. It's creating a system of accountability for appropriation and cultural theft that can make traditional foods accessible to everyone, but also spread the knowledge of where they come from. We can shift our narratives of food through education about our histories and revaluing ingredients in a way that reflects the real price behind that ingredient. And education in the industry, education for kids. And then again, collective action. So I took a little bit more than 5 minutes, but that's it.
Because it was that important. Good job, Maya. Thank you. Let's move to track 4 with Nikki.
Something about the dialogues, I always have problems with my connection and I drop, but I'm back just in time. And I will just share my screen quickly, just because I am a very visual person. And so let's do this. Bear with me 2 seconds and you should now be able to see my screen. Do I get a thumbs up from C? Okay, perfect. So basically, I think there were already a lot of recurring themes that I don't need to necessarily point out. But one of the things that definitely struck me and us, I guess, is the education part. So education definitely came up in our long dialogue, which was focusing as well on the future restaurant. basically looking at the industries that were most hit during COVID. It was definitely as well the restaurant and the hospitality industry, which on one hand created a lot of hardship, on the other hand created a lot of opportunities, which is why in the action track 4 on livelihoods, we actually focused on this very important topic of a future restaurant and how this industry could actually become this powerhouse, which it already is, but increasing, for resilience, for employment, for opportunities, for exactly creating these livelihoods in our society. And we had a rather big session with more than 120 people participating, and we had 10 breakout rooms. So I'm not going to go into details of all of the breakout rooms, but I'll try to sort of go on this these reoccurring themes between the 10 breakout rooms that focus really from the chef beyond the restaurant, triple bottom line, financial models, food waste, which creates this correlation as well to dialogue 2 that we had, as well as data and digitalization, like already was mentioned as well in dialogue 3 just now by Maya. So one of the things, again, coming on education was one of these reoccurring themes between all of the breakout rooms in dialogue 4. And that goes really from skills. What are the skills of the future? How can we educate and train these new skills? Technology. There needs to be actually training around technology and as well how to work with data. Training and education on financials, because most restaurants are not even financially viable. So how can we create an education system towards financial sustainability, financial literacy in the hospitality and food industry? Also education around the consumers. Just like Janet was mentioning about herself, understanding the complexities of the food system as a consumer as well. So there is a role of a restaurant to educate those consumers and lead by example. Another point that obviously is very big here actually is the awareness building element. Again, it goes from the consumer side to awareness building along the value chain, labor. How we actually have a lot of human rights and human dignity issues in the hospitality and the restaurant industry. So how can we build this awareness that this is even happening? Awareness was going up until as well lists and awards, which leads me to the next point, which is transparency. So obviously this list needs to be more transparent. Again, supply chain transparency, transparency in terms of ownership. So new models emerging such as shared ownership for restaurants that can both help on the financial sustainability and on the actual wages element of restaurant workers. Also, again, sourcing became a really important element when it came to transparency. One of the things that obviously at the Social Gastronomy Movement, our second C from the CCPs, collaboration. Collaboration was mentioned in almost all of the rooms as well. That would really go from stakeholders in the industry to governments, the role of governments. We talked about policy in some of the prior dialogues as well. Not to take too much time, define might seem like a weird word here, but it's around the definition of what does sustainability actually mean and how does it reflect in the restaurant industry, this clarity that we need to create. Also this clarity of a chef's role. There's, chefs have become this superheroes of our society and have taken on so many roles beyond the restaurant actually. So how much responsibility can a chef actually have? So there's the redefinition of a chef's role and as well defining what skills are actually needed for the restaurant of the future. And one thing that I've mentioned already is financial sustainability. So that's really how actually the element of waste is one of the things we talked about, and data can actually be cost-saving elements in these new models of a restaurant. This is just a quick summary. I do encourage everyone that wants to find out, we will be happy to share as well the great notes and summaries that Janet put together for the team. But these were sort of a reoccurring themes going from awareness, education, collaboration, clarity and definition, financials and transparency that we picked out here.
Okay, and on to our last dialogue, action track 5, Zaya.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Yes. If we can also have a quick visual, thank you so much, Steph. All right. 7 individuals, 7 stories, 7 countries. This is an art from a young artist and activist, Allah, who represented our storytellers and experts of resilience, who we invited for our dialogue to share how resilience looks like in different contexts. So for those who don't know me, my name is Zaya, and I was co-convener of the Action Track 5 dialogue that focused on stories of radical resilience. And I first would like to express my sincere gratitude to the entire dialogue team, to your Steffi here, but also Rafa, Ines, Dina, and all the crew of facilitators, note takers, artists, storytellers who made, who co-created and produced this people-driven journey, and also for taking this challenge with me to produce a different conversation. Indeed, we didn't follow the entire methodology provided by the UN Food System Summit. We didn't start straight away our dialogue with the dialogue, because we first had to make space at the table for the voices we believed were worth being heard and that are often left out of the conversation. We believed that the realities shared by Melina, Maria Eugenia, Tariq, Chef Alex, Amal, and Eva, and Mohammed had the potential to change the narrative. That's why the first half of our dialogue was a practice of empathy, bringing together the power of storytelling and the power of listening. And only after that context, we broke out into themed rooms, and the dialogue started around the question, what are the key ingredients of building resilience? To share with you what emerged as the main findings, I would like to first share what came out from that different dialogue format that we adopted. First of all, this format enabled us to shift, enabled a shift in dynamics, power relations. Storytellers were not invited as beneficiaries. They were invited as experts in resilience. They were equals, they were delegates, and they spoke with authority. That resulted into a different level of engagement when it is the change maker themselves representing themselves and telling their realities, telling what is the success for them and what are their dreams. From this word cloud, you can also see the shift in language and understanding. It was not a dialogue about them, it was a dialogue about us, we. And finally, from that format that we adopted, the third outcome that emerged was, next slide, please. That format we adopted inspired change. This is art that emerged from every breakout room that we hosted. By bringing artists together with our storytellers and changing people at the table, we allowed diverse opinions and diverse languages to tell and translate those stories of resilience. Creativity was named an important factor for achieving resilience. This factor can lead to different solutions that deviate from the norm. We proved that art can inspire feeling, people, communities, because artists can hear and feel, and only then translate and represent the stories to trigger creativity and ideas for many others. So to resume from this side of learnings, it came out to be a different dialogue that showed us the power of story to inspire, the power of listening to connect, and the power of inclusion to change the conversation and the solutions. So what about the key ingredients or key learnings, key ingredients to build resilience? As you can see on this visual, what really emerged from the dialogue is 3 levels of resilience: individual resilience, community resilience, and resilience at the systems level. 2 hours, of course, it was not enough to find a universal recipe for resilience, but the findings point us in the right direction. Resilience at the individual level showed up as a desire to learn. Learning is an opportunity that is empowering and opens up possibilities. Where doors are open, there is hope.
Secondly, community and finding a sense of belonging are central for resilience. We are stronger together, no matter where your community is, in a restaurant, community kitchen, refugee camp, or farmers collective. With the right support system, role models, and safe and nourishing space, we are able to find that place where we not only survive, but we thrive together. And ultimately, at the systemic or, as Jenna said, intersectional level of resilience, there were commonalities like recipes or ingredients that are very common to this movement, like collaboration and partnership that Nikki mentioned. But what stood out was really empathy is a crucial ingredient for both ourselves and our community. When we do something to better the lives of others around us, it becomes easier to continue fighting for their futures. So I'd like to finish with a quote from one of the young artists that we had on our dialogue. And while you read for this quote that impacted me on the personal level and resumes very well the outcomes of our dialogue, I also wanted to share that the outputs from the dialogue showed us what resilience is not. Building resilience is not limited to structure, process, or framework. Resilience is built on people and relationships. As Raymond says, resilience stems always from a place of discomfort. It's not a one-time or overnight change, but the capacity for resilience is developed over time, because building resilience is not linear. So an unforeseen outcome of our dialogue was that Melina's story was broadcast on national TV in Chile, reaching millions. It got us thinking. We reached maybe 60 individuals from 45 organizations in one dialogue. But how many other Melinas, Chef Alex's and Tariq's, these stories could reach and change their lives or direct them the path? So one sentiment that Melina shared and other storytellers after the dialogue was that she said, "I'm not alone." And we know that these are only 7 examples, and there are so many more in the world. That's why I'd like for you to take as a takeaway from this recap that we are not telling these stories to make ourselves feel good, but to learn and to get inspired to action. In the social gastronomy movement, we are very privileged to hear stories of organizations doing amazing work and having great impact all the time. But the story of resilience also belongs to these extraordinary individuals, because there is nobody better to talk about resilience than people who experience it firsthand. So thank you for listening, and back to you, Janet.
Thanks, Zaya. So before we get into our breakout rooms, across our 5 dialogues, we came out with, I guess, like 3 main outcomes that was similar across all of them. One of them being education. The next bucket would be accountability, transparency, and equity. And the last one, intersectional and community-oriented solutions. So I'm not going to say that we came up with these revolutionary outcomes, because they're very common to everybody, and they've been common themes for years as they have been. So they're not groundbreaking, absolutely not. But what we should acknowledge is that there's still themes. There's still reoccurring themes that need to be addressed. So if we know the obvious, what is in the way? What is it that is stopping each of these different types of themes of education, accountability? What is stopping us from actually moving forward? And I also do want to say that actually a lot of people that I've met in these dialogues are actually working towards those things, right? So it's also perhaps like as Zaya was saying, in the sense of visibility. So maybe these, as we're working towards education, as we're working in ways to find better ways of transparency and intersectional collaboration, perhaps we have the solutions at hand, and it's just a visibility issue of how are we bringing this out to more consumers, to more people, to more organizations, so we can cross collaborate. So today we want to hold the space to identify and envision solutions that will work towards these principles. And equally more important, we want to hear what you are doing on the ground and what people can do to support the progress of these principles going forward. So with that being said, we are going to break out into some breakout rooms and have some conversations shortly. So yes, thank you again for everyone being here. Thank you for your time and listening and sharing. And I think Maxi, you can go ahead and put people into breakout rooms.
Janet, floor is yours.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I guess what we do next is just hear what happened in the breakout room. So breakout room 1, who's going to report out?
Nikki, were we breakout 1? I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
Stephanie and
Oh, we
Nikki.
were?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought we
yeah.
were two.
I can share my screen.
The floor is yours. And Alice
Stephanie
sharing.
as well. Cool.
Yes, please. So in breakout 1, we went on quite a journey of a discussion. I think there was a central theme that was around education and collaboration, but there, as Ali is sharing, we went on a bit of a journey, and one of the words that was called out was the sense of urgency, and the need, you know, if we have no choice to take action immediately. And some of the topics that we discussed around taking action were, well, what are the barriers to taking action? What are the barriers to getting potential partners and collaborators to jump on board? The education element of taking action is, do people feel equipped to join the conversation? And what do we need to do to create space to allow those conversations to happen, whether that's a safe space, or if it's bringing together what might seem to be opposites, right? But it's about having that empathy and that space to have those conversations, and then allowing space for trial and error to actually happen. You know, we're in a place where we need to move forward. We may not have a choice as to what, you know, what's coming next, you know, climate, waste, all the other things that are urgent. So it's about, it came round circle to the people and the stakeholders, and the third element, which is collaboration, which is we need to be doing things with others and bringing people in as opposed to for them. So it's about, we actually had spent a bit of time tapping into the experts on youth and students in our actual breakout room to really understand, you know, what's needed to connect with those audiences, with those stakeholders, whether it is students or whether it's with governments, with policymakers, or other organizations, to actually bring them in and be part of the solution. And I think I've already mentioned action and trial and error. But the last part is that we heard from Jennifer, and we kind of used it as part of the vehicle, which was hearing about her proposed project of edible school gardens, and the importance from a changing mindsets and a conversation and a dialogue point of view is, you know, start those conversations young, you know. It needs to be part of curriculums, and we need to start using this new language to move the dialogues and the action going forward. Did I miss anything, Nikki?
I would just add one last thing, and we had a very vivid discussion, could have continued coming out with more action points. But the role of Sgm, but it emerged quite at the end, I think, which was interesting as well, because we're looking at the role of government
in all of that. And so we came with the grassroots solutions are out there. And just looking at the Social Gastronomy Movement network, they're there. That's where the innovation with resilience, linking to dialogue 5, and creativity emerges within this sense of urgency. And we must act now. And so these solutions are very, a role of government is as well now actually identifying those solutions and scaling them. And that's where we can really, build that bridge as the network, as the Social Gastronomy Movement, from moving to not even moving to action, because there is action, but connecting dialogues, actions, and acceleration. I think that was the last point as we were closing the room that came up. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Breakout room 2.
Okay, so we kind of started with the conversation, and Paula, jump in anytime. But we started with the conversation around education, and that it comes up in almost every working space that we're in, but somehow we don't understand how to tackle education. Is it through a marketing scheme or curriculum? And then who do we start educating first? So we kind of went into a conversation about creating environments for continuous learning, and that education isn't necessarily an institution, that it's also peer-to-peer, bottom-up. And one thing I love is that Ari brought, that you guys were discussing before, Jana, as well, which is bringing conversations from the dialogue to the dinner table. So a few of the bottlenecks that we noticed to kind of like changing, that are blocking us right now, are funding. So on one side, you have huge corporations that are kind of pushing a narrative that maintains the status quo, and those are backed by a lot. It's backed by a lot of money. So who will fund this mass marketing campaign for food systems transformation? We need lobbyists, I guess. We need collaboration, but we also need to bring together, like unite in the front. And of course, that's also bottlenecked by whether or not corporations and their stakeholders are. So it kind of works two ways from the consumer as well. But then we have also that the current narrative of food systems transformation is in a lot of ways really divided. It's confusing. We're divided on one side because there's people who have to be vegan or vegetarian, or and that kind of narrative gets confusing. So people just keep eating and producing things as they have been. And there's also like a lack of inclusivity, an overall lack of inclusivity in the status quo. So what are actions? Potential action could be a mass marketing campaign, #dialogue to dinner table, where we are both consuming, like providing a platform for education, but then also like mostly focused on consumer habits, because that kind of all ties together. And that would be something kind of more democratic, more populated, and this kind of SGM, connecting global and act local. That said, another like tangible action we would love to see come out of the the Food System Summit, the UN Food System Summit, is a set of clear limitations and clear guidelines for governments to enforce a system of accountability, transparency, and ethical behavior for corporations. And that would be something tangible coming out of the UN Food System Summit, which would be ideal, because it's, of course, starts with the consumer as well, but it's also the responsibility of those who safeguard our rights. So yeah, that was it. Paula, would you like to compliment, or anyone from the breakout room?
Thank you, Maya. No, I already complimented through my capital letters in the chat. But I really like, I think I heard from a lot of people like this, creating this common bottom-up voice, like first like bringing us together, create a common voice, and then reach out to governments and private sector, because together you're always stronger than just as an organization alone on the ground. So no, thank you, Maya, for that nice recap.
Great. So thank you everyone for sharing. I think in reflection of hearing what people were talking about in the breakout rooms, to me, I think I'm hearing that we need to move away from constantly saying we can't and we can't, and moving into how can we? Because a lot of, like, I was looking at our board of notes and taking a look at, like, we need partnerships, we need like financial assets and things, but our biggest problem is awareness. As a lot of our community are doing things on the ground that can be amplified, awareness is a huge thing. And with technology and social media and all of these different things, we have to start thinking creatively, as I saw in one of the notes as well, creatively of how we go about tackling these things and how we go about, if we don't have the resources, how do we find different ways to get those resources? And so we're always going to have challenges in the things that we do and what we're confronting, but there's always a creative way of coming around that. And I think something when we talk about collaboration is also, we have to think collaboratively outside of our traditional networks. So something about, for example, with the Social Gastronomy Movement and with all of the organizations that I've seen come together, everyone is around the food system. We're so ingrained in what we're doing that maybe like a collaboration thought in what we're doing has to expand outside of that, has to expand outside into non-traditional collaborative like groups or communities that can help us think out of that box and help us think out of exactly like what we're doing from day to day. So those are just some reflections that I kind of got from the group, because it sounds like as these themes are continuously reoccurring, we have to do something to change, right? We have to like steer a little bit to see a new way of thinking, a new way of bringing in different people, because everyone's a consumer. As we always say, food always unites us all. So food is constantly everywhere. So how do we bring in those people that need to be educated? How do we use what they do every day and bring that forward? So I think this is kind of closing out our dialogue series. Nikki, do you want to say anything, add anything?
Thanks for a great summary, and so good to hear from the rooms, the intersections. I personally, I have to say, got very motivated because it's not, you were saying, I think in the chat as well, it's not only we can do something, we must do something, and acting of the sense of urgency, I think, was one of the pieces that we were speaking about in our breakout room a lot as well. And I think every time that we have had these dialogues in the last weeks, the sense of possibility emerged. The sense of possibility, the sense of the solutions are there, and we have the ingredients. So let's start cooking. And I guess I see this not as our last, it's the last dialogue, but it's not the last time we're going to see each other as groups or individuals. And I think now it's our moment from dialogue, as dialogue starts with, well, change starts with dialogue, but moving to action, I think is the important message that we need to bring to the UN Food System Summit, and lead by example, not wait for others. An important point that I think the movement has never been waiting for anyone else to do, but we were always part of the action and leading that action. So I think that I'm leaving inspired with taking that action together, and the sense of possibility, and just with great gratitude to everyone that's just been contributing throughout the last weeks. Janet, the team, the entire team, Michelangelo for being back here as well, although you're somewhere walking in the garden probably. But yeah, and for Griffith Foods for making this a possibility to start bringing together amazing minds and hearts. So I'm just feeling grateful and looking forward to what now will emerge for the action.
Can I
Go,
just
Jennifer.
jump in?
Of course.
We say about action, it's just in my head right now. How about we think of and design something for next year that we will do an event that everyone in their community, that we will do the same event, but in their own community to make a big impact. and try to gather these action track 5 together and combine it. But it will be in the same week or same, how to say, time. So then I think, you know, being from different countries and locations and etc., it can make a great impact.
And how about we don't wait for next year, but we actually do it this year around World Food Day in October?
Where, yeah. It's, but yeah, let's have this now in as a, we can have a small one, but then we will have a plan a really big one. The one we can do now can be our, how to say, testing to see where errors and where we can improve, etc. And then we collaborate to make a bigger one that we have more, really have clear idea what we're doing.
And that is always really nice. Like, I think if we pilot certain ideas this year, then you always can see, okay, what worked, what didn't work. We did it like last year as well, like, or this year, sorry. No, last year as well, where we said, okay, like this concept worked. That's why we like repeating it this year during the summit. And that's an amazing idea, Jennifer. And I think we can already conceptualize certain things together, because now we have a momentum now, no, like it's like the 6th dialogue where we were able to kind of like every time convene more than 50 members, Future of Restaurants, even 100 people, and they're all eager to get active, because very often, you know, like you keep meeting every 3-4 weeks, and then you're like, okay, but what can we do now? And the doing is on the ground, like acting is on the ground. So yeah, thank you.
I've just jumped in with last, because we have the possibility, this is the first UN Food System Summit. So what we do this year maybe can make a, you know, be a sample or be part of the next year's summit. That not only having dialogues, but also creating events. Just my creativity starts to go.
I love it. And on that point, I want to jump in here and just do a shout. Our next, like our priority for the 2nd semester is our Sgm Summit. Of course, we'll be following closely. It kind of happens like in tandem with the UN Food System Summit. And it is definitely all about transforming local realities and, of course, doing what we can to connect virtually, but then also really encouraging you guys like who have that clout in your own communities to take local action as well. So on the weekend of the 16th through the 18th, we will be doing like the Universal Plate campaign, where we'll all unite under one umbrella. And I do think it's a great opportunity to pilot this and like just show the strength of what happens when we really do again, connect global and act local, and really show and demonstrate that we're in it together.
Thanks, Maya. And so I think with that, we are going to close. Thank you everyone for joining.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.